Sickle cell disease is a blood disorder that is inherited from both parents. This disorder is more common in certain ethnic groups, such as African Americans, Arabs, Greeks, Italians, Latin, and Native Americans. Normal red blood cells are very flexible and are circular in shape, resembling a donut. Their flexibility and shape allow them to travel freely through small blood vessels called capillaries. In persons with sickle cell disease, the red blood cells become crescent or sickle-shaped and also become inflexible. The abnormal cells stick inside the capillaries, blocking blood flow to vital organs. Persons with sickle cell anemia can have symptoms such as yellow appearing eyes and skin, pale skin, delayed growth, bone and joint pain, increased risk for infections, development of leg ulcers, eye damage, anemia, and damage to the organs affected by the obstruction.
Hi guys, I'm here live at the Sickle Cell Community Consortium Summit. This is March 19, 2017. It's been a long weekend. We had a lot of work done. I'm here with Dr. Lakiea Bailey. So welcome to our Sickle Life. And I wanted to congratulate you for a wonderful summit. It's been very informative. We had a lot done, and on a short period of time, I could say that this organization has done a lot of great things. Can you tell to our viewers a little bit of background about yourself and how did the consortium came about?
Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Lakiea Bailey. I am the Executive Director of the Sickle Cell Community Consortium, and we are a collaborative of patient organizations, patients living with sickle cell disease, and their caregivers. And we came about in February of 2014. A lot of patients and caregivers were at the FDA drug development meeting, and we decided that we would meet and we would take the time to create an organization where we could make sure the patient voice was in the center of everything from policy, education, legislation, research. And so we did. We created the consortium. We obtained our 501c3 in August of 2015, and we just completed, we've entered into our second year of existence.
For those who are not from the United States, what is the 501c3?
Okay. 501c3 is what you file to become officially a nonprofit designated organization in the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So basically, what would you say is the mandate of the consortium?
We really have two. One is to ensure that the patient is in the center, to provide a platform to harness and amplify the power of the patient voice. And two, we're here to provide infrastructure support and capacity building capabilities to other nonprofit organizations dedicated to sickle cell disease.
Okay. And part of the consortium so far, how many CBOs are there in the part of that collaborative?
We have 30 community-based organizations in the U.S., and then there are a couple who have now joined us or in the process of joining us from outside of the U.S.
Okay, that's good. And you guys been in existence for how many years now?
Well, this is our second, so August of 2015. So we completed our first full year last year, and now we have begun our second year. So we're babies.
Yeah, but in 2 years, this has been actually very great. One comment I would like to make: you were part of the sickle cell. You're co-founder, I guess, of the Sickle Cell Warriors.
Warriors. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so how did those two organizations came about? Or did you start it with the Sickle Cell Warriors first, and then the consortium came about afterwards? So how did
that work together? Sickle Cell Warriors Inc. was actually founded by Tosin Ola, who is a registered nurse, and she is such a powerful advocate in the sickle cell community. And she will tell her story. She is amazing. She was in the hospital, very sick, and looking for support, and found nothing. So instead of continuing to look, she created the support she was looking for. She created Sickle Cell Warriors, Inc. And I came on board, and we registered as a full nonprofit, and we began organizing patient symposiums and really expanded the mandate of Sickle Cell Warriors and took it into made it sort of a bigger organization. And I started there as her vice president and director of research. And then after a couple of years, it became apparent that we were going to need to start the consortium as a way to bring all the different organizations together. So I am no longer part of the executive leadership of Sickle Cell Warriors. Warriors is, however, one of our 30 CBOs, so we're still intimately connected. But I'm now the executive director of the consortium.
Okay. And when, like today, as in one of the message that you were giving, is that like in the United States, you have like a national entity, which is the SCDAA, and you guys basically work together, if I understood correctly, right?
Well, we work hard to support the initiative, the legislative agenda, and the direct patient support that SCDAA provides. So we're not the same organization, but the consortium, one of our first official acts was actually to send patients to one of their advocacy meetings. And so we work to support their agenda and initiatives.
But there was a distinction you were making this afternoon or this morning, and I would like if you can reiterate that. Is that you guys come together? You guys don't want to duplicate things that already exist.
Absolutely.
And so it's a way of supporting one another to make us great or greater.
Absolutely. So the consortium was absolutely not created to duplicate the effort of any existing entity. So what we always work to do is to ensure that anything we're doing, any project, any platform, it's not already being done. Because if it's being done, then we prefer to support those efforts and use our energy towards something else.
That's good. If you can talk to us also about your experience, you also a sickle cell warrior. You were born with sickle cell, and so if you can tell us, like, what is it, the type of sickle cell that you have, and in a nutshell, what was your experience with sickle cell that kind of brought you to where you are now today?
Okay. Well, I was diagnosed with sickle cell disease when I was 3. And my mother at the time was told that I would probably never be sick and I'd never be put in the hospital. And of course, that was very, very wrong. I started going in and out of the hospital by age 5. I was diagnosed at the time, it was a slight misdiagnosis. I actually I have hemoglobin Monroe. So hemoglobin S, sickle cell, and hemoglobin Monroe, which is a second very, very rare hemoglobinopathy. So it's a mutation of the beta hemoglobin chain, but it causes one of my genes to be non-viable. So essentially, I only have one working hemoglobin gene, and it carries S. So I present as SS.
Okay. And but in your life experience, you've been hospitalized. You've been going through. I don't know if you've been going through blood transfusion, blood exchange, etc.
Yes.
So I would say that probably you had some experiences of not necessarily good care.
Oh,
so
yes.
That's one of the reasons that you become an advocate. And so what is the gap that you've seen so far, and how do you see the different entities that we work together as part of the consortium remedy those things?
Well, the way the consortium works is that we provide a platform for patients and caregivers to identify themselves the problems and needs and gaps in our community. So it's up to all of us as a collective community to find where those gaps exist. And then that's the purpose of the General Assembly. And then once you've identified and we have collectively said, this is a problem in our community. Then we work together to create the solution. So instead of just feeling helpless, and I always use the term learned helplessness because helplessness can be learned, we encourage and empower unlearning that and instead creating and developing and then executing the solutions that we want to see. So our groups work together with our patients and caregiver advocates, working with our community-based organizations, and then our healthcare and medical advisors to develop solutions and then execute them.
Okay. Can you give us like a little example about the different, I guess, treatment or mistreatment that you experience as a sickle cell patient?
Absolutely. I had an experience very recently, actually, where my hematologist, during a normal visit, sent me to the emergency room. I needed antibiotics, I needed pain management, I needed IV fluids, I was dehydrated, I was in crisis, I was very sick. And I went to the emergency room and they did the bare minimum and then would not come in. I had questions. I could tell that my liver was inflamed. I could tell that my hemoglobin was dropping. I could tell, I've had sickle cell almost 40 years. I could tell. And so I asked to speak to the doctor. He refused to even come in the room. He stopped at the front door, at the door to the room, said, I have important patients, I have critical cases, you're not one of them, and I'm not seeing you, you go home. And he kept walking. He would not treat me. And the thing is, it was a horrible experience. It was humiliating, it was painful, it was difficult, but the thing, Ulyss, is it was common. It is a common treatment for people living with sickle cell. And it was my last straw. And I decided, after I finished crying, because I cried on my mother's lap, I decided that I was done and I would no longer continue to put up with that kind of care and treatment.
And what was the step that you've done? What are the steps that you are working towards to, react towards those mistreatments? In terms of, are you putting up a complaint? What is the procedure that you would do for yourself and that you do?
Well, I did file a complaint. I filed it with that hospital, and I also filed it with multiple different agencies that we have here in the U.S. to follow up on those, both the state and the national agency, to make sure those complaints were on file, and then follow up with them. But beyond that, because I know this is more than just my story, and it's more than just my experience, but it is the experience of all of us living with sickle cell. It is incredibly common. What we did is we have now come together as a community to fight this and to demand fair treatment in hospitals and clinics throughout the U.S. for individuals living with sickle cell. We have created a platform. We have created a task force made up of healthcare and professionals, government agencies, and caregivers and patients, so that we can begin to demand better treatment and better care.
And that has to be done. It's been well overdue, I would say, for sickle cell to be recognized as an illness for over 100 years, and to see where we are today, it's we're far beyond. That's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I agree.
There's something that you mentioned, that it's time that we stop accepting certain things. There's a word that you use. I don't know if it's resiliency or what it is, but we allow. That's the phrase you started to use.
That's it.
Say it. Yeah.
I think that people deserve what they tolerate. And we have tolerated this for too long. And now it's time to stop tolerating, because you teach people how to treat you. And we have allowed this for too long.
So, as an example, I'm from Canada, Toronto specifically, and we're working in collaborative with the government to be able to change, it's baby step, it's small step. As an example, we want to recognize June 19 as World Sickle Cell Day across Canada. So that way, it'll be easier for the provinces, which is equal to the states in the United States, so that they can recognize June 19 as World Sickle Cell Day, in the individual provinces, which equals to the individual states in here. It's one step that will allow us to, number one, I think what we want to do is sickle cell has to be recognized as a disability across the board. So being recognized as a disability, it's one thing, will allow us to access funds, will allow us to being able to be put on the same list or category as other illnesses. So that way we'll be able to access a better healthcare, in a sense. As an example, for people that not able to work, and they applied to the government to get disability funding. But if sickle cell is not recognized as a disability, it's harder for you to be able to even get the disability funds. So that's how we're trying to get the legislation changed, so that, number one, sickle cell is being recognized as World Sickle Cell Day, June 19. That's one step, the Advocacy Day. Number two is to be recognized as a disability.
So it isn't.
Number three, to be able to do that. Excuse me.
I see. So it isn't right now in Canada. Sickle cell is not
a disability across the board.
Wow. Okay.
So we want to be able to. We want to change that, and now we're getting the ear of the government. The new government that's in place right now is a liberal government. They're willing to listen, and they've been touched with a lot of our stories, and that's one of the steps that we were able to do to change those things. And I think that's something similar that you guys are doing as well. Something like a March on the Hill that you guys have. I know it's one great way to actually change the legislation as well.
That's right.
So. Those are the different movement that we're doing all across the world. We're doing the similar work, and we're trying to accomplish the same goal, is so that sickle cell could be recognized worldwide as as a disability, as an illness that needs to be respected, acknowledged. We want people to be compassionate about
That's
care,
right. That's right.
And deliver the best care that you can deliver, because. It's like, the best way I can put it, it's time that people stop putting color in our healthcare system.
Yes.
So that's that those inequalities need to change.
That's right.
That's the number one. I guess the best way we can change those things is by changing that across the board. Racism has no place in the health.
In healthcare. That's it. That's it.
So once we're able to chip away that stigma and those different issues that we deal with, I think we'll be on the right path to make big substantial change happen.
That's it.
So I wanted to thank you for your time. Thank you very much for everything you've been doing for the sickle cell community. And I wanted to ask you if there's a way that people want to reach you, get in touch with you. Are you on social media? Let us know.
I am on social media. My personal social media is Dr. Lakiea Bailey. And then the Sickle Cell Community Consortium, we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram accounts. We are at SCC Consortium on Facebook and Twitter, and SC3 Consortium on Instagram.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Racism has no place in the health.
In healthcare. That's it. That's it.
So once we're able to